with our tall buildings are more than sculptures in the landscape. They're containers as well. And the experience of the people living and working in those containers is every bit as important as the view of the building from the outside. So developing innovative solutions for our tall buildings as we move forward needs to pertain not only to the core and shell, but to the interior space as well. Now, most of our tall buildings are designed for businesses. So leaving aside the residential sector at this point, let's talk about the tall building as a workplace. And this is something that I have not heard really discussed at this conference yet. So this may be all a new idea to some of you. For the thousands of occupants of a very tall building, we can think of the interior as a vertical urban environment, complete with issues of traffic, routes, of emergency services, of community zones, everything but a place to sleep. Now, currently, what is happening is that the way people work is changing very, very rapidly, primarily due to technology. And the technology is making it easier for us to communicate and collaborate over long distances. But it also is eradicating a lot of skill-based tasks. More and more of the legal research now is being done by artificial intelligence. When you go to get insurance for your car, you're talking to an app, not to a salesperson. And this rapid change in business, in the way business is being done, means that more and more of our businesses need a higher proportion of innovative and creative thinkers. Now, tenants actually attract and retain people to make their businesses go forward, but they're finding that attracting and retaining these innovative and creative individuals is becoming more and more difficult because the supply is not meeting the demand. So they understand that creating a workplace environment that will support the efforts of these individuals and will give them a healthy environment as well is really very, very important. So the innovation needs to take place in the workplace itself. And that begins with the design of the architecture of the building and the mechanical and electrical systems, all of the components that go into the base building. It has to start there. Now, for the past decade, we have assumed too comfortably that a standard floor plate with basic MEP provisions would be adequate for an interior designer to come in and fit out the space for the standard workplace. But workplaces aren't standard anymore. We used to think about densification, about jamming more people in to get the maximum number in there for the square foot of rentage. But now we're thinking about a transformative workplace that will support the efforts of the client organization. We used to worry about millennials and what do they want in a workplace, but now we're recognizing that it is the mindset of the creative individual and the innovative individual, regardless of age, that needs to be catered to. Over the past 20 years, we've understood that a grade A building, if it's going to be grade A, needs to be sustainable. That is our responsibility to society at large. But as these tall buildings contain thousands of people going about their daily work all day long, the architect and the engineers have an obligation to create an environment that will support a healthy and effective workplace for these people. It's not only the right thing to do, it makes economic sense for developers as well. And it makes business sense for the tenants, too. Tenants are beginning to realize that finding a space that will effectively support the work that their people do and in a healthy manner is not an expense. It's an asset that will contribute to the return on their investment in their people. So considering that we spend so much time in the workplace itself, clients are looking more and more for a building that will support the well-being of their people. And that is what WELL is all about. Established in 2014 by the International Well Building Institute. Yeah, it's an institute. It's linked to the U.S. Green Building Council and parallels LEED, but it focuses on the interior environment. Quite basically, simply put, it is concerned with creating a healthy environment for the body, the mind, and the spirit. But as you can see from what's on the screen, the strategies for creating a well environment need to begin with the architecture and the engineering of the building itself. When we at Moser Associates look at the buildings that a tenant is considering leasing, we do a gap analysis, and you would be surprised at the gaps we find even in LEED certified buildings that do not meet the WELL standards. The number one issue, and certainly here in China, is adequate fresh air of a good quality. We're looking for 30% more than the ASHRAE minimum to meet the WELL standards. And let's be sure that the system delivering that air can filter it properly to get that quality into the interior. Fresh water is a basic human need. WELL certification requires every occupant to be within 30 meters of a freshwater supply. So how long are we going to have to live with the water coming up to the floors of a tall building being only at the core because that's where the toilets are? We have to live with that now, but will we always have to be living with that? Well, admittedly, nourishment is not something that the architecture and the engineering can really contribute to unless you have a garden on top, as some of our other presenters have mentioned. That would be a good thing too. Now, light is natural light with no glare is essential. Think about a building's orientation, about shading devices, about clear stories, about light shelves to bring light into deep interiors. This is all part of the base building design. And remember, too, that interior lighting is not just about lux levels. And the typical acoustic tile ceiling with recessed lights is very likely to be woefully inadequate. Now, in our great concern that we've had about exit stairs to get people out of a tall building safely, we've lost sight of the positive aspects of stairs to connect spaces in a building. I can't tell you how many times when we've been faced with large occupancy spaces, we've had to tackle very restrictive structural arrangements in order to get some stairs to connect between floors. So think about that. Think about those connections when you're designing the structure. comfort. Again, we think about glare, which can be mitigated to a great extent by the design of the building itself. And for acoustic comfort, let's think about the materials that are being used. Lots of glass, lots of marble will reflect the sound in an uncomfortable way. We also need to think about mitigating the sound and vibration from mechanical systems. We are mentally a lot more comfortable when we are in connection with nature, with greenery, natural light, open space, open views, and the view of the environment around us and outside the building at large. So the design of the building itself can enable this very important connection. Well has just recently further delivered its concepts with an addition of 3 to meet further requirements or to more clearly define it. These are materials, sound, and community. Now, quickly, here are just a few visuals of some of the ways that we have responded to the need for well requirements. And here are a few more. Now, every tenant space has the opportunity to become a well-designed space. What we find most challenging, and I'm talking to the engineers here, if there are any of you here, in the typical buildings is, number 1, the supply and quantity of fresh air. And number 2, bringing more natural light into deep interior spaces. Thoughtful architecture and engineering of the base building itself can contribute a great deal to this. I just want to show you a few of the well-certified projects that we've done. This is the first Asia-Pacific well-certified project done in 2016. And although it was in a LEED-certified building, we still had to add filtration to bring the air quality up to the well standard. For the city project in Hong Kong, this was the first well-certified project that we did in Hong Kong. And from our gap analysis of the building, we had to upgrade both the filtration of air as well as the water purity in order to meet well standards. Now, of course, we walk the talk in our own offices. In Hong Kong, our offices both LEED Gold and designed to the WELL Platinum standard. And as we do this for a lot of our tenants, a lot of our clients, pardon me, we have to continually explore and understand in greater depth how the base building as well as the interior can support a well environment. Now, I'll show you a quick video of our New York office where we've gone a step further, creating a well design in a 110-year-old Woolworth building in Manhattan, and creating an environment that truly enables the staff. We've gone wireless there, so please note the floor doesn't have outlets for electrical connections, and the perimeter doesn't either for cabling.
We think differently about people at work. It's not just about creating a workplace, but a platform for real people to solve the world's most difficult and pressing issues. This means creating physical environments that support creativity and productive working relationships, digital environments that intuitively connect people and ideas into communities, and a cultural environment that enables authenticity, supported by tools and methods to promote high performance. We see the highest performing organizations as those that align the physical, digital, and cultural environments.
Now, here in Shenzhen, you may be familiar with KPF's Jianhai building, the two towers coming out of the ground now for Tencent. It's been designed to be LEED Gold, and we have been asked by Tencent to create an interior environment for the workplace in those two towers that will meet WELL certification. We're working with the architect of record, Leon Orange, and the many consultants who are retained by Tencent to integrate their ideas and their input into the building design before it is completed so that it will meet WELL standards. And this has required some modifications. From an interior perspective, the biggest challenge is that Tencent is evolving so rapidly that they can't tell us now which of their business units will be occupying the space in 2 years' time. So we have looked for commonalities, and we've created 3 typologies: the creators, the connectors, and those who focus on the financial aspects. Now, although the building was initially designed to be commercially leased, it is, in reality, a vertical campus for Tencent, for more than 10,000 people who will be working for Tencent in these two towers. As such, it is an environment that has everything, including an auditorium, but it doesn't have bedrooms or places, or hotel rooms or places to sleep. As there are no transfer floors between lift zones in this building, and there is no express elevator up to a higher lift zone, we have had to work with the team to provide stair connections between lift zones for better circulation. Now, as the towers twist up, we've been able to open up 2-story and 3-story atriums in the corners connected to the relevant lift lobbies, so that as you come into the space, you can immediately celebrate the architecture of the building and feel connected to the world outside. Now, Tencent asked us to eliminate the initial typical acoustic ceiling with the plenum air return, and to provide an open ceiling that gives greater height and a better sense of space. So we had to do this both for functionality and aesthetics and for a sense of well-being. So the layering of the fire services piping, the ducting, and the lighting is something that needs to be designed not only for comfort and acoustics, but for air distribution and the effectiveness of the system itself. So you can't hide your MEP stuff above a ceiling anymore. You know, most of them are opening up. So you've got to think about how is it going to be an effective upper environment up there. Now, the two-floor podium, plus 2 basement floors, actually connecting the towers, are transformed into an outdoor atrium and urban canyon with sunken plazas that is for the Tencent people themselves. This is not a public space, okay? All of this, including retail, food outlets, and informal workplace areas, is for the thousands of Tencent employees to enjoy. The sunken plaza becomes an area for greenery and connectivity. The curtain wall is reshaped to better connect the interior and the exterior and covered with planting at the MTR access so that you rise from the underground into a green area. All of these things I've mentioned are being done to provide a more effective workplace for Tencent's thousands of employees and to give them a sense of well-being. Now, I just want to draw your attention to the left-hand column on this slide. You'll remember that earlier I mentioned that tall buildings for workplace purposes aren't really urban habitats because they don't provide a place to sleep. But in China, the power nap is ubiquitous. And I see a nodding heads. And in many workplaces, you will see folding cots and pillows in the corridors or along the walls. So as a bit of innovation, for Tencent, we have designed and have currently in prototype a workstation with a fold-out bed. Where you can take a nap, fold it out, take a nap, fold it up, put it away, get back to work. So you see, you can design a vertical workplace environment that truly is an urban habitat, even with a place to sleep. So that's what we're looking at in the future, amongst many other things. Thank you very much.